make sure to hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel. This week's key topic is all to do with strength and conditioning coaches wanting to work in elite sport. I've created 10 top tips that I wish I knew over 10 years ago when I was starting out as a beginner strength and conditioning coach. And I want to elaborate on some of those key points. They're our power tip from last week's episode. And I want to just share some stories as well as an insight into why I think they're critical for those that want to get the most out of their career working in elite sport. So we'll get straight into it. The first one is all about getting coaching experience. So make sure you get certified in Certificate 3 and 4. These days that can take you only 8 to 12 weeks for some of the good courses. I did mine at Australian Institute of Sport Personal Training, and it was a remote course. You did it online. The headquarters was in Queensland, and you find yourself a mentor, which mine was Ivan, who was based at Fitness First on Alma Road in St Kilda. He had a Muay Thai background, so it was great to learn the technical side of the basics of things like boxing to do with your clients, as well as more functional-based unilateral core and rotational power work that he did with his clients in the gym. And then that led on to my first contract as a subcontractor to Fitness First. And I did that for 6 years before working with athletes. So working with general population, either those preparing for a wedding and they wanted to get in their best shape, those that just wanted to put on muscle mass, just to look good for the summer, or just generally boost their confidence. And of course, those that wanted to just trim down and lose body fat and get healthier to boost their energy and overall productivity. From there, I also did a bit of swim teaching and swim coaching, and that's where I started to focus more on the teaching and coaching side of things, giving people homework programs to do to improve their swimming. And these were literally people that hadn't swum before, to the point where they were so fearful of swimming they struggled to even get into the pool for their first lesson, and then getting them to a point where they can swim confidently for at least 25 meters, most at 50, and now they can at that point spend time with their family and friends snorkeling and going to the beach, where before they were avoiding it. So that's where I really got my taste in the side of coaching. And it wasn't until 5-6 years in where I was invited down to do the Caulfield Grammarians Football Club, where I got a taste of strength and conditioning and managing a group of athletes. And that's where I really learned the difference between a personal trainer and a strength and conditioning coach. And I'll move into some reasons why you need to get your degree a little bit later on. But tip number 1, get your Certificate 3 and 4 in personal training. You'll learn business skills, organizational skills in terms of running your own schedule if you're managing your own clients, which I think is critical for any career. You'll learn communication skills, working with a range of different personalities and how to engage them. You'll learn selling skills to be able to sell to someone that you don't know, which is really important for working with elite athletes, to be able to sell a program and get buy-in as quickly as possible for effectiveness, to facilitate that program and those workouts. And then you'll get huge amount of time working on people's technique. And funnily enough, that transfers really well with athletes, because not all athletes have spent a lot of time in the gym when they get to you, particularly the ones that just got drafted. They may never done any gym work. So you're actually working with an athlete that may be more coordinated and have better movement competency than the average Joe Blow, but their technique in the gym and their exposure to the gym is brand new, just like a client that may never have trained before. So they're definitely transferable from a technical point of view. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2, as I mentioned, my next exposure with working with athletes was managing a local football club, so the Caulfield Grammarians Senior Men's Program. Absolutely loved my time there, and that's when that really planted the seed of working in elite sport. So through the connections through the club, I was able to spend a day at North Melbourne Football Club, and that allowed me to meet the high performance team there, and straight away they mentioned you need to get your sports science degree. So number 2, even if you know 100% you need to work for elite sport, actually try it first before spending 30 grand on a bachelor's degree of sports science and 3 to 4 years of your life. Practice at first, feel it first, see what it's like managing a group of 50, 60 athletes, if it's a team sport athletes or if it's track and field. more your one-on-one type athletes get down to that exact sport that you envision yourself working in, and at least try and get a gig in community sport and volunteer your time. So you've got a taste of what it takes, and also you'll be really motivated to get the most out of yourself in your degree, because you know and you're really clear of where you want to go. So before starting getting qualified, I would recommend working at a local club and volunteering your time, and practice managing big groups really early. It took me 5-6 years to get to that point. I wish I did that a lot earlier. So I was about 25, although that had its benefits because I was really competent in the gym and working on technique. It also had its downfalls in terms of being able to effectively deliver in front of a group from a communication point of view, and also be able to manage a group from a time perspective when you've only got 2 hours. What's the most important warm up? What's the most important gym session that you can do in 20 minutes, and running. Whereas in the PT game, it's relatively easy because you're working in a one-on-one setting or up to 4 athletes or clients, and it's all set. There's very little constraints. You're not working with other coaches and other colleagues. So I think working at a local sporting club has massive upside, and definitely recommend strength and conditioning coaches do that before you go straight into your sports science degree, or start both. Work at local clubs as you're pursuing your degree. Number 3, follow legitimate strength and conditioning high performance staff, those that have been in the game for over a decade. They've had sustainable results. They've got a credible name, and there's no bullshit. There's no fluff, and you can speak to people like lecturers at your university about who those people are. But they will be really good role models, even if they're overseas, for you to just see what they're doing on their social media content, on their blog posts, YouTube channel, wherever they're posting content, if they are. Obviously, there's many that don't, but for the ones that are, have a select few that you're spending time following. And you yourself will develop a strong filter on what they're doing and what others in the industry aren't doing, because the fitness industry has a huge range. And there's certainly a lot of nonsense out there. So you want to make sure that if you're not only selective with who you're following, but you're trying to eliminate the crap that's in the industry and really focus on where you want to go and who you want to be. So yeah, like I mentioned, sustainable results is key. So you want to make sure those that are following haven't been doing it for only a couple of years. They've actually been doing it and getting great results for a long period of time. And also with that, follow them from different sports, so track and field, Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting, bodybuilding expert coaches, wrestling combat coaches. So try and get a huge range, particularly if you want to work in contact team sports, because you're going to need those skill sets. Number 4, join a competitive squad. So get the feel. So you've got empathy, get a feel for what it's like living an athlete's lifestyle of training 15 to 20 hours a week. So for me, I did that at CrossFit Schwartz, which they have a competitive squad, and we would do double days 3 times a week, 2 single days, and then 2 days off. So you really get used to following a schedule, you get used to training with a squad, you get used to training under fatigue, you get used to pushing your limits, reaching personal bests, but also encouraging others to get better around you as well. So you get injuries. So you get used to, it doesn't need to be at a professional level. Obviously, not everyone's going to have the skill to be able to do that, the talent, but just get a feel for joining a competitive squad. It might be your local weightlifting club, a powerlifting club, track and field, MMA, whatever it is, but you're putting in a lot of time and energy. So I did that during my bachelor's sports science degree. So you do working part-time, you're doing your studies, and then you've got a fair bit of downtime in between to be able to get in some quality training sessions. And that way, later on, you'll have a fair idea of when you're planning the scheduling of maybe a rehab athlete, or you're managing a group and how to periodize their program. You'll know what it's like doing a gym session after a really hard conditioning session, or you'll have have at least some form of an idea. Where if you're completely removed from that and you've never had any reference point, I think the athletes, I feel, can sense that. So definitely train hard yourself. You'll also develop tools for your tool shed. So by doing CrossFit, me growing up, I only played team sports, so cricket, football. Never did any gymnastics, which you do basic level gymnastics. We had a Olympic level Martin Kreutz, Olympic level gymnast coach at CrossFit Shorts. Every Wednesdays we would do gymnastic skills, so learn how to handstand, learn how to do ring muscle ups, learn how to kip properly, hollow hold, to all your fundamental gymnastic skills. We'll learn from Martin, which was really good for, at the moment at Melbourne, I'm looking after an athlete that's going through shoulder return to play, and we're working on his shoulder flexion. So a handstand walk is quite a good movement to build up his confidence and resilience in the overhead position, because he's a key position. So to help him build that strength and stability overhead. So straight away, by me doing a lot of work on in the handstand, I can demo that competently, so that athlete can see exactly what we're looking for in that movement. So and same with, you might be doing for a period of time, they want to go take an athlete through a power block. I did Olympic weightlifting, and we had a national level, Zach Gerich, who's a national level weightlifter himself, as well as an Olympic weightlifting specialist coach. He would be with us 3 days a week, and we'd be doing Olympic weightlifting 3 times a week. And there was very high level athletes, seeing things like clean and jerk of 160 kilos, Jordan Bender, and guys like Samuel Flav snatching. He only weighed 75 kilos and could snatch 120. So you're seeing some impeccable performances, as well as being able to see how important those things, a technique is, and consistency of putting in the work is in terms of work ethic. So join a competitive squad. Number 5. Now you've done heaps of coaching. You'll know how to run a business. You know how to organize your schedule. You know how to lead a group. You know how to train yourself. So now you're pretty clear on, okay, I'm going to invest 20 to 30 grand on a degree that I know exactly where I want to go, what avenue. Or it might not necessarily mean that you know exactly where you want to go, but I want to work with elite athletes, and you're really clear on that. Okay, you have to get your sports science degree. That is your ticket to the dance. Okay, so you can have all these skills and all these experiences, but I've never met anyone that's worked as a strength and conditioning coach that was only certificate 3 and 4 in 2023. I'm sure it happened 20 years ago. But now, if you want to work in elite sport with elite professional athletes, you have to be qualified, and that is a step that you must take. So, sports science degree, human movement, bachelor degree, and you get your ASCA level 2. I think you get a lot of practical skills at ASCA level 2, as well as good networking. So those 2 would be number 5. And I certainly strengthened my filter in terms of what was relevant and what's not for athletes. You learn the importance of research and how to have an objective scientific approach to your programming and delivery from a communication point of view. So highly recommend getting qualified also from a practical sense, not just to have a ticket to the dance, but also will make you a better practitioner. Number 6, seek out internships and or mentors. So ideally you work under those mentors. So for me, my first mentor, if you like, in the industry of elite sport, AFL, was Luke Boyd. There was a family connection there, caught up with him for coffee, and then I was lucky enough to get an opportunity at Box Hill Hawks just by coincidence. While I was studying at Victoria University, James Muscle, a mate of mine who was at the same uni as me, was there, and Chris Ross, who was working at Box Hill, had some time overseas for a period of time, so there was an opportunity to help out the club for the remainder of the season. Took that opportunity, and sure enough, because VFL's so transient, James actually got a better role, so my mate got a better role at another club that he took, and I stepped into his role. So for the club, it was really easy. They'd already met me, so they didn't even need to interview. So getting your foot in the door, any opportunity you can get it, really, really helps. And I was able to, a couple of years later, get an internship at the Hawthorn Football Club, working under the likes of Andrew Russell, who's an expert in the field of high performance sport, Andrew Lambert, who was the head physio there, Ben Jansen, the rehab physio, Sean Murphy, who's now the high performance manager at Essendon Football Club, and Zane Leonard, who came from Gold Coast, was also the strength and power coach at Hawthorn. So you get exposure to some great strength and conditioning staff, medical staff, and that's hugely invaluable. So the more that you can get that foot in the door and volunteering your time to meet those staff, the better you'll be, because you'll learn what's relevant by being in the system and seeing how the flow of the day works, the flow of the week works. You'll understand, have a better understanding of what it's like working with elite athletes, and you'll also learn, what's relevant from what you're learning at university to how to apply that sports science in the in the setting of elite athletes. So seek out internships and mentors. Your practical skills will go through the roof, and you'll learn very quickly what is relevant and what's not. For a while there, while I was doing my degree, I was preparing myself for the role, but there's no better preparation for the role than actually being in it and seeing it. So that way you can go away and work on your deficits as well as sharpening your strengths as a practitioner. Number 7, build your own brand. So this is a mistake. Obviously, I had good experience in the private sector, and as soon as I got my first full-time contract at Hawthorn Football Club, I let all my business go and didn't do anything for a couple of years. And sure enough, my role was made redundant due to COVID, and now I had no income. So that's a mistake that I wish, although I heard from mentors, make sure you maintain your own side hustle when you're working elite sport, because it is finicky and there's not a lot of security. So there'll be at some point where you'll get fired, sacked, or there'll be something out of your control where you're out of contract and you're looking for a new contract, and in that interim period, no money's coming in for your family. So make sure you've got your own side hustle. So while you're climbing the ladder, you're building up these experiences, you're working on your skill set. Make sure that you've got some form of a side hustle that you can control. So no matter what happens, you've got money coming in. So things like what you can be doing, even if you haven't got any clients at the moment, you can be building online content, blog posts, videos, whatever works with how you like to consistently create content, podcast. But have that safety net, have it something that you're really passionate about, so it's perceived as a hobby and it's not going to drain your pursuits and your ability to apply yourself when you're working with your elite athletes. So that's number 7. Number 8, now you should have some pretty strong networks. You should be building some great experiences. You're qualified. So by this point, I think it's really important to lead and manage a semi-professional program. So I was lucky enough to do that at the Box Hill Hawks as high performance manager, as well as the Casey Demons as high performance manager. So you're getting used to leadership skills, managerial skills in terms of managing a small staff of medical and strength and conditioning team, and working closely with the coaches, and of course running the program for the athletes. So at Box Hill, it was quite a well set up program where we had a head S&C, an assistant S&C, a sports scientist. But when I first went to Casey Demons as a high performance manager, I was the only high performance, quote unquote, or strength and conditioning staff that was there. We had a head physio, Keith D'Souza, who was quite well rounded with having strength and conditioning experience. So he was almost like an S&C as well as being a physiotherapist, as well as Mark Corrigan, who was the head coach, had done a Bachelor of Sports Science degree. So although there wasn't any specific roles, there was certainly awareness and skill sets amongst other lead practitioners in that program. But it was the best thing that I could ever do, because I was learning the Melbourne way, which was fairly different to the Hawthorn way, and being able to apply that learning. So by assisting the strength program and during the day, I could then program for the Casey Demons and run those gym sessions. Whereas if I had an assistant S&C, they'd probably be programming the gym program and running the gym sessions. And then you're running the warm-up and the on-field conditioning as well. So you're able to learn the Melbourne philosophy and apply that. So I think running your own program, you're going to have great insight into what it takes, or a taste of what it takes to be a high performance manager at an elite level, at a full-time role. Nowhere near the responsibilities or pressure, of course, but you get a little bit of an idea. So when you're in assistant roles, you can help those help the high performance manager probably a little bit more effectively, because you have a little idea of what it takes, or exactly what they're going through and how busy they are, and how many thoughts are going through their mind in terms of all the decisions they're making for the athletes and the program itself. So lead a program, have some managerial experience. Doesn't need to be at VFL level, just at any sort of senior level would be ideal at that point. So it's also going to be a good separator between you and potentially someone else that you're competing against for a role, as it's well regarded in the industry. Then number 9 would be, now you want to work towards getting a full-time contract where you're fully devoted. You're not, when I was high performance manager role for a semi-professional club, the VFL clubs, I was doing a bit of PT at a gym. I was doing some work at Haileybury Football Club, Haileybury High School with their swimming and rowing, not swimming, rowing and rugby, while also completing my ASCA Level 2 workbook. So there's a few different hats that you're wearing at one time, and therefore you're wearing yourself thin. So now by getting a full-time contract, you're fully focused on one thing. So like at the Hawthorn role, that was split between 2, assistant S&C AFL Men's during the day and then managing the program. But now at Melbourne, I'm solely focused on reconditioning with the AFL Men's program. So I can tell my skill sets. I'm learning, something every day, refining my ability to coach and program every day for return to play and accelerated return to play, because I'm just focused on one area. So now the podcasts I can listen to, the blog posts, the articles, people I lean on, my networks in the industry, it's solely focused on helping the athletes that I'm currently working with, opposed to when you're a high performance manager, you're doing a little bit of everything at a VFL level, which is good early on. And then you want to get, I think, after a few years of doing that, some special roles where you're solely focusing on potentially strength and power if you're in the gym, or reconditioning athletes, so those that are injured, bringing them back onto the field. Or if you're a conditioning coach, solely focusing on energy system development and how to manage big groups from a conditioning sense. So specialty roles, full-time roles will take your skill set to another level. And then number 10 is just having the mindset of staying humble and curious and constantly getting better. If you're breaking it down in 3 areas, you've got your rehabilitation, which S&Cs can definitely get in those roles. Like I mentioned, I'm doing that now at Melbourne Football Club, and maybe half the AFL clubs will have an S&C, other half will have a physiotherapist. So making sure that you're working on your rehabilitation principles, you're working on your strength and power ability to program and coach, as well as conditioning. So they're your big 3, and constantly working on those as you're climbing your ladder and making sure you're a well-rounded practitioner. I would love your feedback. I've posted all these points and tips on our Twitter. So if they resonate with you, please give it a reshare on Twitter. And if you've got any tips that you would like to add to that feed, it's for developing, strength and conditioning coaches. So please add in some more tips. They're just my 10 that I wish I knew earlier when I was starting out, or ones that have also worked well for me for my goals and what I've tried to get out of my career. So that's my top 10 tips that I wish I knew when I was a beginner starting out as a strength and conditioning coach. I would love to hear, as I mentioned on our Twitter. In terms of the upcoming week, for the podcast, we've got Caleb Morgan, our Western Suburbs high performance coach, who's been working with some athletes of ours in a one-on-one setting, especially on the field with their acceleration, speed, and agility. So that's coming out, that podcast, on Wednesday. He's got great experience working at the Western Bulldogs across their men's and women's program. So looking forward to publishing Caleb's episode. Thursday, we had to reschedule this morning's Vern Gambetta interview, where we're focusing on athlete development. So we've rescheduled that to next week at the same time, 9 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. And then our bite-size episode for this week will be with Sam Sukowski, the speed forward at the Fremantle Dockers. So looking forward to sharing a snippet of that episode, particularly because we've gained a lot of following over the last year, and some of the episodes that we published a year to 2 years ago, I want to reshare those and bring them back to light. So if you enjoy that 10-minute snippet on our podcast, then you can listen to the whole episode by searching for Sam Sukowski on our Spotify, iTunes podcast. This week's power tip is for footballers. So for those wanting to improve their performance using strength and conditioning for Australian rules football. So I've got 4 power tips for you. Number 1, you need to have a ticket to the dance for the level of football that you're playing. So I'm a firm believer that strength and conditioning is not the reason a team or an athlete is going to win a championship or win a premiership. win a gold medal, but it might be the reason you'll lose one. So that's what we mean by you need to have a ticket to dance. There's a certain amount of non-negotiable levels. So for Australian rules football, you've got to have an under a 7-minute 30 2K time trial for most positions. Midfielders, speed forward these days, you need to have 6 minutes to 6:45. So there's an element of, you probably don't need 6. You probably need about 6 minutes 15 to 6:45. So there's certain thresholds that you need to be able to hit to give you confidence that you're around the mark, but also that you've got the fundamentals. Same with your strength. You want to be making sure that your minimum bench pressing body weight and squatting 1.5 as a minimum. So for your 100 kilos, 150 kilos for your squat or for your deadlift, you want to be making sure that you're able to do chin-ups competently, or any gripping exercises. You're really strong through your finger grip strength and forearms and upper back muscles for things like wrestling. So making sure that you've got the essential areas of strength and power, as well as your aerobic capacity, are in check. Number 2 would be less is more. So once you've got those fundamentals, at times our ego can overtake and we start pushing to trying to get like sub 6 minute 2K time trial, or 2.5 times your body weight squat. So these are where the law of diminishing returns, the amount of effort a footballer would need to get to that level, even if they are genetically wired to those skills, compared to the return they're going to get on investment, isn't weighing up. You'd be better off spending more time on studying your game from a tactical, visual point of view, working on your deficiencies in terms of the technical side, the tactical side, working on, maybe if you're super aerobically fit, working on your speed, your acceleration, your agility. So rather than just making those areas of strength and conditioning, yes, our football aspects, we want to be sharpening the weapons and making them the best they can possibly be, because 0.5% can make a difference. But with your strength and conditioning, once you've got them to the point where then you've now got the ticket to the dance, they're not the reason that you're not able to perform at your best anymore. Start to shift your focus on other areas. So football is a well-rounded sport, so we want to make sure that you are strong. You've got good amount of body armor, especially around your midsection. You've got good stability, single leg. You've got good upper and lower body strength. You're explosive on your first 3 steps. So, and then of course you can repeat high intensity efforts throughout 4 quarters of football. So working on all those things. So if you've got an awesome 2K time trial, I'd be focusing more of your energy on your repeat speed, for example, over your Christmas break, off season, or when you're at the football club doing your training. Work on more intensity in your football training as well, not just in the running. So sometimes less is more, not just going for massive runs. Now you're focusing more on, okay, well, how can I get my goal kicking better? How can I shift your focus towards potentially doing less strength and conditioning, but more of the technical side, because that's what's going to make you a better footballer. Number 3, have a needs analysis. So work closely with your staff at your club and identify areas that you're trying to get better at, as well as areas that you're currently trying to maintain. So there might be a period of time where you're really attacking your sprinting ability, and you're maintaining your aerobic capacity from a strength and conditioning point of view. And then that's on the field. And then on the gym, you're really trying to push the needle, move the needle with your strength, the ability, how heavy you can lift, while maintaining your power. Okay, so have a really clear focus on what's the physiology I'm trying to approach here, but don't forget and neglect the other qualities. Make sure you're still touching on those and getting regular exposures of those, because there's no point getting a huge gain in one area while the other areas are dropping right off, because otherwise you're just going to have this yo-yo effect, and over time you're not going to get where you need to be. Where if you keep a lot of the qualities in check and then focus on one for a month, and then bring that back down to maintenance, and then have another focus where you're really attacking one, over time your floor is going to be, and your ceiling is going to be way higher. So you'll have a better, well-rounded athleticism with a clear needs analysis, and lean on your staff members with that. Number 4, availability. So strength and conditioning can really enhance your ability for the playing squad to be available for football training as well, from a physical sense, so they're not injured, as well as being able to play back-to-back games. So by doing things like working on your eccentric hamstring strength, working on your glute and core hip control. So being able to have good co-contraction through your shoulder girdle. So being strong and resilient, robust athletes will be more available to be able to handle the rigors of the game. And that's something that strength and conditioning can help. That's why we don't just lift like a power lifter or a bodybuilder. We do a lot of like frontal plane movements. We strengthen your groins, your calves, your hamstrings. So doing all those accessory type movements with intensity is really, really important. And not just to focus on strength and power and speed, but to build resilience. Okay, so things like Nordic hamstring curls, things like single leg RDLs, Copenhagen's, seated calf raises, landing mechanics, and as well as building just general resilience and tissue resilience through your whole body, through shoulders, trunk, all the big muscle groups, and your feet. So player availability is a massive one. That's the power tips there, the 4. I'd love to hear from you if you have any queries or questions around those. Lastly, I just want to welcome our new Academy members that have joined. So the athletes, Elaine, Angus, Isra, Alex, Jake, Jack, Noah, Jessica, Eliza, and Kyle. Thank you for joining. I'm really looking forward to catching you in the Academy. We've got our Get Better Plan monthly call in 20 minutes. So if you listen to this live, make sure to tune in and I'll answer all your questions that you've posted on the discussion forum, as well as the coaches that have joined. So Matt Don, Dave, Matt Newbold, Thomas, and Todd. Really awesome to see strength and conditioning, high performance coaches, personal trainers join our Coaches Academy, solely focused on helping coaches either make an impact in elite sport or build your business so you can have a scalable online coaching business. So thank you for joining our Academy of High Performance Sport. For anyone that's interested in joining the Academy or our online program, there's a free link if you click the link on our Instagram bio or head over to preparelikeapro.com. There's a free program page. And then for the coaches that want a 30-day trial on our Academy, just email me at jack@preparelikeapro.com and I'll send you a coupon code. Thank you. If you're listening to the podcast, it would be greatly appreciated if you could give us a 5-star Spotify review. I think we're at 50 at the moment. It'd be awesome to see that at 100. And I'll see you guys